Hi folks, you're with Tasseless today. Tasseless today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the decline of the West generally, and how this decline is now multiplying upon itself, if you will. And I see that it's turning into a sort of a whirlpool that's starting to draw in everything in the wider vicinity. Now it's in the earlier part, I guess, of that process, but all the building blocks for the decline are well and truly in place. Let me talk a little bit about what I mean here. Now, when affirmative action sort of started to make a pretty big splash, there were some areas, particularly government departments, big multinationals, quangos, universities, all that sort of thing. You sort of very quickly saw the quality of the people that were being appointed into senior positions, or all positions, but particularly senior positions. It doesn't matter if you do affirmative action on the floor sweeping per se, because the floor sweeper isn't going to make key decisions for the business, or fail to make the proper decisions, or the most worthwhile decisions, or the best informed decisions, or decisions based on years of experience, qualifications, and credentials. The damage they can do is quite limited. But when you've got a VP of operations, let's call it, then any decision they make is probably going to be a bad one on balance, or destructive one, or less helpful than it could have been. And they're going to not do many things that they should be doing or need to be doing for the health of the business or the enterprise generally. Now, what made Western society somewhat unique in the world was, the scientific enlightenment and so on, evidence having to pass an exam and having to show that you can do the job and you're qualified to do it, and so on. This was very necessary. Now, if you didn't have the qualifications and the credentials, then the next step, it was always like a second tier, was people who had the desire, the eagerness, the aptitude, and on balance of probability, this person can do the job if we give them the right help to do it. But the idea was always to produce the most efficient, effective, worthwhile outcome. That was always the objective. And to have people that could achieve that objective or contribute to it, independent examinations, merit-based employment, merit-based promotion, merit-based reward, and so on. Now, once an executive's in a job, and I went through this, once an executive's in a job, you have to suffer the penalties for failure. Otherwise, you don't learn. If there are no penalties for failure, then you don't learn, nor do you attempt to do better next time. And for my own thing, if I made a mistake or an oversight, and more than mistakes, it was typically oversight, like I missed it rather than didn't address it. And sometimes these were lower level things. Sometimes they were a judgment call that was based on my inadequate experience, and therefore I made the wrong judgment call, those sorts of things. Nonetheless, I had a burning desire to do better, to not make the mistakes, to improve the outcomes on the basis of, being more effective, more efficient, more capable, more knowledgeable, more qualified, credentialed to do the job and do it better. Now, as long as that motivation and as long as those building blocks are in place, then you have a natural capacity to improve and do better next time. Now, there are always, not that it was a perfect system, by the way, I'm not saying it was, but this idea of improvement and doing better next time. And for example, there was, if I failed an exam at school or didn't do as well as I thought I should have or could have, I would instantly realize, well, the solution to this isn't to scream racism or scream, some sort of victimhood. The solution is that I go away and work harder. I hit the books and I study harder, study more often. And instead of going to the beach or playing sports, instead of that, I would hit the books, and that's how I was going to do better. And of course, it worked. But that was the motive. There wasn't any question in my mind to say, well, I'm a victim somehow. I got to work harder. I got to do better next time, and that's sort of what I did, and it was a natural thing, and the rewards came, and the same for merit in business. If I work harder at it and become more dedicated, more focused, and just put in the legwork, do the heavy lifting, do the hard yards, all that sort of stuff, then I'll produce a better outcome. And it was always that intention. Now, that I wasn't unique or alone in that, far from it. I remember, when I sort of joined I think they called it a cadet trainee or some shit back in the day. The young executive of tomorrow and everything, and so I remember all my the people, the other cadet trainees, about my age and that sort of thing, and how we were all very focused and dedicated on we were going to do good things. We were going to find the cure for cancer, and we were going to send the next rocket to Mars and all that sort of stuff. And we're very, but to do that, we had to be better at what we did. There's no use running around saying Nazis are everywhere, or why aren't black lesbians in the board of directors? We had to do better. Now, for mine, I didn't care. At the time, I had no concept of race in the sense that this group was better than that group or this or that. It was simply, are you capable of doing the job? That was the only thing that I could see or understand. And if I found myself deficient anyway, I would work harder to more study. I'd ask more questions. I'd go to people who did know and ask their advice, and so on. Now, let's say, okay, now all that's gone. That doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, if it does exist, it's in rare pockets, and there's a few shifts that have caused that, which aren't just ideological. There are other things sort of behind that as well. But all that merit's gone. The idea of independent testing means that only the hardest working, brightest kids do well. That's not equity. That's not fucking equity. Because if you're going to go with the brightest, hardest working kids are going to do well, then you're going to have a lot of, a lot of white kids. The brown and the black kids aren't going to be there. The girls aren't going to be there. The black lesbians aren't going to be in that group. So you have to change it so that the outcomes represent equity. That is, everyone comes more or less into the same. Everybody gets the same participation trophy. But that means no one's trying harder. But no one's got an incentive to why bust your ass when it won't make a difference. Why work hard? Why study hard? It doesn't make a difference. Now, there are exceptions in some of the better private schools and some of the courses, for example, engineering more so than say sociology. You'd still have to work harder in engineering and studying engineering at a good university than you would at studying sociology. But even here, the social engineers are determined to produce equal outcomes. Why are black lesbians not in equal numbers to straight white males in engineering? Why not? It must be because of fucking discrimination. It must be because of Hitler. So even there, it's being permeated with affirmative action, gift degrees. So given there's no incentive for people to work hard, study hard, hit the books and that sort of stuff, then nobody is. Why would you? So the quality of the work has gone down. Sometimes some parents have asked me, could I review their senior high school kids' essay on such and such. Hey Billy Bob, I know you know about this. Could you have a look at it? Maybe make some. Yeah, sure. So, and you look at it and go, holy fuck, this is diabolical. If a first year high school student handed this work in, I would flunk it. I mean, you've got to be careful what you say to their friends, and I don't want to embarrass them or the kid or anything. So I have to be, I can't sort of hit the essay with the red pen and go scribbling all over it. So, but nonetheless, the independent, impartial, merit-based testing, strictly pass or fail testing. And I was probably the last tranche of kids that went through the high school system where strictly pass or fail testing existed. And even then they were already starting to dilute it in the year behind me. So anyway, this idea of strictly pass fail is gone because it means there are people who pass and fail. That's not equity, and therefore we can't have it. But what it means is no one's trying to do better. No one's flunking a test. No one's saying, well, there's no incentive. If you flunk the test, you've got to work harder to pass the test, or to come in the the top couple of percent, or to come first, or whatever. I mean, I'm thinking something came into my head now where I didn't bother studying. I can't remember what it was now. I didn't bother, like, say, third year high school. Didn't bother studying for this test. I thought I'd breeze it in. And there was a guy who lived just around the corner from where I lived, and I thought he was pretty dumb. He's a straight white kid sort of thing, but I thought he was pretty dumb. He was quite a good athlete, but as a student, and I passed the test, but not by much. I got I expected to get 80 or 90, and I got say 60, for example. Much to my shock, this kid, the dumb kid, also got 60 or close, like 58 or something. So I was so irritated and annoyed by that, and I thought, I should have done better. And I ended up with the same, give or take, the same result as that fucking dumb kid down the road. So I hit the books like you wouldn't believe. And then the next test came along, and I got like, I don't know, 90% plus or something, and this kid got even less the last time. So it was a good 30, 40 points difference. But the point being that incentive to do better and to work harder and to improve the result was there. That's all gone. It's pretty much completely gone. There's still pockets of it around, but it's as a general rule, it's gone. Now, I remember the kids, sort of how embarrassed they were when they got 5% in the exam, but they weren't kids that, back in high school in the day, they weren't kids that they either had like learning difficulties that hadn't been picked up, like dyslexic or something. Well, but the main thing is they were lazy. They just wouldn't put the work in. They just didn't give a shit. And they're always going to. But those don't give a shit, lazy kids, are now getting participation trophies, regardless of whether they got an IQ of minus 5 million. And then they're being waved through to senior high school, waved through to university, and then given affirmative action jobs. So now the next thing is that I mentioned earlier is in the workplace, particularly where you have responsibilities, particularly here. And now, whether you have a responsibility at a lower level to your fellow workers, your co-workers, your work colleagues, responsibility to do your job so they can do their job. And but also, once you move into sort of supervisory, managerial, and decision-making type roles, and I don't mean low-level decision-making where I hold the broom in the left hand or the right hand, but decision-making that affects multiple people and affects revenue and affects profits and affects whether people have a job tomorrow, whether the company's still in business, that sort of level of decision. Then I took that very seriously. And again, made a huge effort to do better next time if I screwed something up or failed it. Even if it was a minimal fail, like I hired a guy, for example, I would hire a guy and I didn't give him the support he needed to succeed. For example, I'm thinking of one. The main reason for that was I was doing a lot of international traveling and I didn't have the time. I couldn't delegate that support gig to someone else. So when I was hiring another person in that same sort of capacity, I was mindful of the need to provide the help and support. And so I thought, okay, well, I've got a lot of commitments on my time coming up here, and I've got to go overseas, travel, and so I'm going to arrange someone to support this guy, or I won't hire someone until I've done that work that's going to distract me, so I can give the proper support to this dude to help him be, those sorts of things. So even sort of, like if you like day-to-day tactical stuff, I said, well, I don't want that failure to occur again. So I'll adjust my behavior. I'll be more mindful of the pitfalls and so I can do. So but all that's gone too. Now, just to illustrate this, some years ago when the affirmative action appointments are going on, I met this blue-haired lady that had been completely gifted. I mean, she's fucking useless. The job of VP of, I think it was operations. And she was nothing but a minor admin person, and probably was useless at that as well. and her only interest was feminism and affirmative action and re-engineering society so that useless, dumb, stupid, lazy people could come on the top and all the other people at the bottom. But she's got no incentive to improve. And I was sort of looking at decisions that she was making or avoiding. She didn't want to make a mistake, so she thought, I'll just avoid making the decision. Or if something goes wrong, I'll blame someone else. Now, she's not utterly unique in those attitudes, but she had a general, her sophistication was that of a receptionist. And she had the inclination to learn of someone that was a receptionist. I don't have to learn anything. I don't want to know. I don't care. And that was 5 years ago, a little bit longer, actually. So I met her again not that long ago. She's still in that job. I mean, it's beyond me. I would have fired her 1,000 times over if I'd been the boss. But her boss is an affirmative action hire. The people putting up the money are like a BlackRock offshoot, so they don't care. And so nobody cares, and no one's got any incentive. So and this is the primary point, I guess, of the essay, her sophistication in her understanding of the world, her desire to understand them, her desire to understand the business that they're in, her desire to do any better, her desire to. She's all keen to talk about how many black lesbians they've just hired, but that's it. That's all she seems to give a fuck about, even though she's supposedly in charge of these other areas. Now, the standards have dropped. You walk through the place and it just seems like, I mean, fuck. It just seems like the place is falling apart. And but she's no more sophisticated today in her understanding and her knowledge than she was 5 or 6 years ago. She's frozen in one spot in time, and the reason is she's got no incentive, none, to do any better. She's got no desire, but also there's no, if you like, a motivating force behind her to encourage her or to reward or to lead her on and say, look, this is the goal. You've got to do better next time. And that just isn't there. So she hasn't moved in one spot. She's still where she was 5 or 6 years ago. And her non-sophistication is quite mind-boggling. Listening to her talk and just the don't give a fuck attitude. And all she cares about is equity and affirmative action and this sort of, and believes that she's thus entitled to this job without performing and so on. And it's a reasonable, it's not a big paying job, it's reasonably well paid. I mean, far, far above what she could ever get in a competitive hiring merit-based system. But multiply this across the entire society and the entire workplace. And as merit has been squeezed out more and more and more, and there's no incentive, that just gradually this whirlpool effect is beginning. And we're all going to be dragged. I think we're all going to be dragged. I think it's even too late to reverse it. Even if you took decisive action now, I don't think it could be reversed. There's just too many people now, too many organizations, whether it be the BlackRocks, the Democrat Party, or the bodies politic all across the West, the NGOs. There's just too many players now that are completely invested in this equity, affirmative action, social engineering, or all merit and so on is bad. Just too many people invested in it, and if it all comes crashing down and completely levels all the buildings and the landscape, sure, what's rebuilt may be an improvement, or one assumes it couldn't be worse. But these people are now sucking all the wealth and all the life out of the rich West, and congratulating themselves on arranging its complete and utter demise. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.